My name is Richard Westbrook. I'm 87 years old and I spent 60 years building an empire that meant absolutely nothing to the people I love most. I'm sitting in my study right now, the one with the mahogany desk and the view of the gardens my wife used to tend. There are photographs on the wall behind me shaking hands with senators, me accepting awards, me standing in front of buildings that bear my name. And next to those photographs is a picture of my daughter at her high school graduation. I'm not in it. I was in Singapore that week, closing a deal I can't even remember now. I came from nothing. My father was a machinist in Detroit, worked a line at the Ford plant for 33 years until his lungs gave out. My mother took in sewing to make ends meet. We lived in a two-bedroom house with my three sisters, and in winter you could see your breath in the hallway. I remember my father coming home with oil under his fingernails, eating dinner in silence, then falling asleep in his chair before 8 o'clock. He died at 59. I was 22. At his funeral, his foreman said my father was the most reliable man he'd ever known. That was his eulogy. Reliable? I swore I would never be that man. I would never break my back for someone else's dream. I would never watch my wife count pennies at the kitchen table. I would build something. I would matter. I put myself through business school working 3 jobs. I slept 4 hours a night for 2 years. I graduated top of my class and I had 6 job offers before I even walked across the stage. I took the one in New York, the one with the most outside, the one where they told me I could make partner in 5 years if I worked hard enough. I worked hard enough. I made partner in 3. I met Catherine at a fundraiser in 1964. She was a school teacher, the daughter of a librarian and a postal worker, and she had this way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We were married 8 months later. I was 29, she was 26. On our wedding day, I promised her the world. I meant it. I thought giving her everything meant working harder, earning more, climbing higher. I thought security was the same thing as love. Our son Michael was born in 1966. Our daughter Sarah came 2 years later. I remember holding Michael for the first time in the hospital, feeling the weight of him in my arms and thinking, I will give you everything I didn't have. I thought that meant money. I thought that meant opportunity. I thought it meant never having to worry the way I worried as a child. So I worked nights, weekends, holidays. I missed Michael's first steps because I was in Chicago. I missed Sarah's first word because I was on a conference call. Catherine would call me at the office and say, the kids ask when you're coming home. And I say, soon, honey, soon. I'm building something for us. And I believe that. I genuinely believe that every hour I spent away from them was an investment in their future. By the time I was 40, I was running my own firm. By 45, I had 3 offices and 200 employees. By 50, I was being profiled in business magazines as one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. People wanted my advice. They wanted to know the secret. I told them it was discipline. I told them it was vision. I told them it was sacrifice. I never told them what I was sacrificing because I hadn't calculated that cost yet. Michael was 17 when he stopped talking to me. Not in a dramatic way. There was no fight, no shouting match. He just became quiet around me. Polite but distant, like I was a stranger he was being curious to. I remember asking Catherine what was wrong with him, and she just looked at me with these tired eyes and said, Richard, when was the last time you asked him about his life? I didn't have an answer. He went to college on the other side of the country. He came home for Christmas that first year, and I tried to connect with him. I asked about his classes, his friends, his plans. He gave me one word answers. On the last day of his visit, I asked him if he wanted to grab breakfast, just the two of us. He said, I have an early flight, Dad. He didn't have an early flight. I checked later. He just didn't want to have breakfast with me. Sarah tried harder to keep me in her life. She really did. She would call me from college and tell me about her courses, her roommates, the boys she was dating. I would listen for 5 minutes, then tell her I had to jump on another call. She would say, Okay, Dad, I love you. And I would say, Love you too, sweetheart. And then I'd forget the conversation the moment I hung up. She got married in 1993. I walked her down the aisle, and I remember she squeezed my arm right before we started walking and whispered, I'm glad you're here, Daddy. It was the first time she called me Daddy in years. I teared up. I told myself it was because she looked beautiful, because I was proud. But the truth is, I teared up because I realized how rare it had become for her to be glad I was there. Catherine stopped asking me to come home early sometime in the late 90s. She stopped planning vacations she knew I'd cancel. She stopped waiting up for me. We lived in the same house, slept in the same bed, but we became roommates. Polite roommates who coordinate the schedules and barely looked at each other anymore. I told myself it was normal. I told myself every successful man went through this. I told myself that once I reached a certain level, once the business was stable, once I had enough saved, I would slow down. I would reconnect. I would make up for lost time. The firm went public in 2004. I was 71. I made more money in one day than my father made in his entire life. I bought Catherine a house in the country, the one she'd always dreamed about, with the garden and the big kitchen. She thanked me. She moved in, and I stayed in the city during the week because it was easier to be close to the office. Michael lives in Oregon now. He's a high school teacher. He has two kids I barely know. He calls me on my birthday and on Christmas. We talk for maybe 10 minutes. He asks about my health. I ask about his family. We say we should get together soon. We never do. Sarah lives in North Carolina. She's a therapist. She also has two kids. She calls more often than Michael. The conversations are warmer, but there's still something missing. It's like we're doing a performance of a father-daughter relationship, not actually having one. Catherine passed away 3 years ago. Breast cancer. She fought it for 14 months. I was there for the diagnosis. I was there for some of the treatments. I was there at the end. But I wasn't really there, if you know what I mean. Even when I was sitting next to her hospital bed, holding her hand, part of me was somewhere else. The day before she died, she opened her eyes, looked right at me, and said, Richard, you were so busy building a life that you forgot to live one. She closed her eyes again. She died the next morning. I won. By every metric society gives us, I won. I built a successful company. I accumulated wealth. I earned respect. My name is on buildings. But I lost my son, not to tragedy, not to distance, but to my own absence. I lost my daughter's childhood. I lost my wife long before cancer took her. I lost thousands of small moments that don't seem important when you're missing them, but turn out to be the entire point. I have 4 grandchildren. I couldn't tell you their favorite subjects in school. I couldn't tell you what makes them laugh. I sent them generous checks on their birthdays. I'm a name they know, not a presence. Last month was my 87th birthday. Sarah called. Michael sent a text. I sat in this study, surrounded by all these awards, and I tried to remember a single deal, a single meeting that felt better than the afternoon I taught Michael to ride a bike. That was one afternoon in 1972. That was what mattered. I can't get those years back. I can't undo the choices I made. Most of the damage is permanent, not because they hate me, they don't, but because we're strangers. Your children don't need the biggest house or the most expensive vacations, they need you. Your spouse doesn't need just security, they need a partner. Your work will replace you, but your family can't. I thought I was building a life, but I was just building a resume. I have success without connection, achievement without love, victory without meaning. I want everything except the life I wanted. Don't make my mistake.